What was your 2020 like? I mean, we spent a lot of it together.
Yeah,
So
I feel like we did. I feel like the first few months were kind of crazy. Everyone's trying to get their bearings, right? I just remember time being so elusive, and I don't know. I think all of us were going through these crazy emotional roller coasters. And then finally, as your body starts to acclimate, your brain starts to acclimate to your environment, coming out of like, about by summer to fall. And then of course we went into winter when everyone's just like, oh my God, I mean, we're used to this, but also like we're getting crazy because we can't go anywhere. Everything's shut down. 2020 was really interesting, but it was actually very, very good for me. I think, for a lot of people, it was a time to kind of slow down. Mm-hmm. Right? You think about,
and you're one of the people that are like pedal to the metal.
Yeah, no, I had like one day to myself a week, and then now I have all this time to myself, which was so nice. Like I forgot what it felt like to just like stay home and just like chill out. I got to do a lot of like home renovations and like, adding things to it because I'm spending so much time here now. I have to care more about it, and I want it to make, not, and at the time we didn't know how long we were going to be in this. So it's like, might as well get comfortable now and get as much as you can, worked on at the house. But like I said, I think it was a really good time for self-reflection. I think humans, or at least in the US, we're kind of at the helm of this idea of the hustle of modern life. Not only this idea of overconsumption, because of like the Amazons of the world has created us in this on-demand economy and everything has to happen now, but also we glorify this idea of the hustle. And so
yeah, we do.
Right? And we just don't know how to take a break. And we hear about the self-care stuff, but like, I don't think it was until really 2020 when we actually, many of us got to really like hone in on what does self-care mean to each of us individually. Mm-hmm. Like, you think of the wellness stuff and, okay, you can go to a yoga class or get some bath bombs or blah, blah, blah. But like self-care means a lot more. It's meaning, there's a lot of different things, whether it's, pursuing a creative project or projects that you never got to finish. I had so many house projects that I hadn't finished, right? So in that sense, it was really nice to slow down and really get, completely focused and immersed and do something that I wanted to do, like create, or, even if it's painting or something more mindless, it was just really nice to just kind of slow down and do those kinds of things.
Yeah. And we're in Justina's space right now, and Justina has like, she's got such an incredible vibe. She's got all these different plants. We always have incense going when we're at each other's place. What is this now?
So it hasn't fully turned on yet, but I just lit it. But it's basically called a backflow incense, and this dish that it's on has a hole through the middle, and basically the little cone that you see here has a hole also in the middle. So as it burns, the smoke kind of sucks from underneath and into the hole from this like particular plate. Oops, and I just knocked it over. And I'll have to relight that. But basically then it flows like water, except it's smoke. Yeah. So it looks really, really cool.
Justina's got the coolest stuff.
I got this when I was visiting, where was I? Oh my gosh. Oh, the Pacific Northwest. I was in Portland when I got this. They have a lot of gypsy stores.
Gypsy stores.
They call them gypsy stores.
Yeah. Yeah, Justina's space is like, I don't know. It's just so you. And like of my friends, I would say Joe Anhalt and Justina have like the best taste. And Joe's going to join us in a few episodes from now. And so we have the incense, we have the smoke, we have the candles, and the plants, the fauna.
You got to have the nature, We live in the city. It's nice to balance.
So what was your biggest revelation of 2020?
Oh man. I think like there's like a number of things, right? I think there's a number of things that we are aware of, but we really didn't pay a lot of attention to. And again, slowing down, or the fact that I didn't really ever watch media or like the news as much as I probably should have until, that was one of the only things I had to do was sitting at home. And so I think a lot of the revelations that we had in 2020 coming from all this kind of tragedy and just like anxiety and fear and all these things is the revelation of hope, and the fact that like the revelations actually offer a chance of course correction. So a lot of the revelations, I think, is, it's almost like, as a minority person, I know of the inequalities, being a woman of color, that has always been a thing, even though I've been one of the lucky ones where I haven't had anything super detrimental that was so tragic or traumatic for me. But knowing that these things exist, and it's almost like sometimes you feel like, well, what can be done? It's just how it is. It's systemic, blah, 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 which is the case. But there are things that we can do when we realize that even though during this time we were all stuck in our houses and we couldn't connect necessarily, but the fact is the beauty of like the fourth industrial revolution, which is then technology and digital connection and social media, and this connectedness allows us to mobilize faster than we ever have before, even if we physically can't. Even though I would say during even 2020, I think there were physical mobilizations as we saw throughout the world, but or throughout, at least in the US too. But I think like the fact that we are able to really take into consideration, like, this is the shit that we're in right now, and we need to make changes. And there's a really interesting theoretical model that's called the Strauss-Howe generational theory. And you've got both sides thinking, like, there's some people who are for it and some are like, well, this is like, there's no really scientific proof, blah, blah, blah. This idea that every 80 years, our different generations play different roles. And millennials actually have this role of playing the hero. And that's kind of what we're seeing now, is we are seeing all this chaos and this tension between the traditional versus progressive ways of thinking. And not that it hasn't been started by our generations before us, it has. But now we're seeing, like, I think it's just a serendipitous kind of moment where, the intersection of technology, the intersection of wokeness, if you will, and media, and the idea of information is transparent. And the more information we have, the more transparent it is, the more, knowledge that we have, and knowledge is power. And we're able to use that and figure out where, now faster than ever, we know where the resources are. We know what we can do. We can mobilize faster. So I think it's such a powerful tool. And so I see that's happening, even though I felt like we slowed down and there's some pauses in a lot of things, but now we are able to kind of like course correct the things that have been happening. And the World Economic Forum has called this era that we're in now, or this time that we're in now, called the Great Reset. And it's because all these different economies, in all these different countries, and us, and everywhere else in the world, we are figuring out how to beat COVID, and how to change our systems or acclimate to this whole new reality. And this is the time to rebuild our global economies to be more sustainable, more inclusive. We're seeing things
like work more together.
Yes, and especially because Western civilizations. Oh, by the way,
is this supposed to be on fire? Oh, there we go. Oh yeah.
By the way, like Western civilizations are known to be more individualistic societies, individualistic cultures, versus Eastern societies like Southeast Asia, Japan, Korea. Those are more collectivist cultures. And so actually a lot of my work that I've been doing in the past year is talking about this idea of moving from this individualistic mindset to more of a collective mindset. And I think that the tensions now are still there. I think politically is even there. You can kind of feel sort of like there's a tension, if you think about it, right versus left, whatever you're standing in. There's a lot to do with individual versus collectivism, and on both sides of that. So I think it's a really interesting facet of how we're moving, and we're seeing that by like this collective activism that's happening, this idea of moving from an individual standpoint, a sense of belonging. We used to like want to feel like we belong to something, and now it's a sense of identity. So this movement from belonging to collective identity, and I think with the digital era today too, it's easier now more than ever to feel like you are a part of some sort of movement or some sort of feeling of identity, because you're connected to so many different people in so many different facets.
Yeah, so much is going on.
Yeah.
Interesting you bring up Neil Howe and William Strauss. Episode 25 of this podcast, we talked about the book Generations and these generational cycles and these personality types that each has. And you're right about the historical cycles, and now we're in a secular crisis. Even in the prologue of this book, it said the crisis of 2020, and then the nation's public life may undergo swift and possibly revolutionary transformation. So we see that history has these cycles that happens, and we can use it to then build and create the future. And that's what's so exciting.
So exciting, because I mean, history kind of repeats itself in different ways.
Yeah, but as a generation, you get to make your mark on the world, which is so cool.